We got no fear, no doubt, all in balls out. We're going up tonight to kick out every light, to get anything we want.
All right. Welcome everybody. We're back, y'all. We are back. Jordan Balasico and Kevin Marble. We are back, not with Motor Racing Podcast, but we are back with Four Wide Media. A little rebranding we did on the off season. As you know, we had to step away last year because Kevin I was having his health issues. Kevin, how the heck are you, man? Happy 2025. Racing season is here.
I hear you. I'm excited. This week's Daytona, we get qualifying here in 2 days. We get the duels in three. And then officially on Friday, starting with the truck races, our season kicks off for 2025.
Hell yeah, it does. And we got an awesome show today. Awesome show today. We got Kyle Whisner coming up in about 15 minutes on the show. It's going to be great. We're starting things out with a bang. But first, we had a little passing in the off season. Bill Weber, former NASCAR on TNT and NBC Sports broadcaster, passed away on December 13th of 2024. I want to say it was from cancer. Um, he had some amazing commentary memories, especially when it came to Talladega and Daytona. Kevin, what is your favorite Bill Weber moment?
Man, there's so many. He's just such an iconic part of the super speedway races, man. He reminds me a lot of an American version of Joe Diffie. He puts a lot of emphasis and a lot of excitement into his commentary. Um, I I don't even know if I could pick just one, but it was always exciting. Um, he's going to be missed.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget it. I remember when he was dismissed from TNT in 2009. I'm just like, man, I guess because it was like some kind of confrontation he had. Bill Weber left a mark on the NASCAR broadcasting world. He's only called, let's see, he called the Daytona 500 only in 2006 when Jimmy Johnson won the Daytona 500, his first one. I tell you what, he also called Johnson's championship win in uh at the his first championship victory, the first of his five consecutive titles for Johnson. Crazy, right? And he also called the 2005, 2007, and 2008 Pepsi 400s. Man, talk about taking it way back, huh?
Man, it seems like it was just yesterday, but it seems like it's so far away.
Right? And he also called some Champ Car World Series races too for NBC and TNT. He will be missed. I loved hearing him, Wally Dallenbach, Alan Bestwick, and Benny Parsons in the booth. The three of the all of them were hilarious together.
They really were. They 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 made up one of the better commentating groups than what we've got now. Not tossing shots at Fox or NBC, but so far, I mean, the only original um, commentary that we really have is Mike Joy.
And that man needs to be put in the Hall of Fame already.
Yes, for sure.
He needs to be in all motorsports Hall of Fames. I don't care which Hall of Fames. He needs to be in all motorsports Hall of Fames because he is the voice. Just like Michael Cole is the voice of WWE, Mike Joy is the voice of NASCAR.
Yes. I mean, and we go back to you go back to watching some of the old races, with Earnhardt and those guys, and see how really young he was, and see how long he's been with the sport. And it's almost like Darrell Waltrip. It's going to be sad to see him go.
Right. And I sure do miss that boogity each and every single weekend. See, when it comes to Mike Joy, and since we're on the topic of Mike Joy, let's go ahead and pull up the career of Mike Joy while we're talking about it. Let's see. He's been in broadcasting for 45 Daytona 500s. 45 Daytona 500s. 7 for MRN, 17 for CBS, and 21 for Fox. Name one motorsports commentator that has covered 40 5 Daytona 500s. You can't name one of them.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. And also during the off season, a few weeks ago there was a tragedy in Washington D.C. There was an American Airlines flight that collided midair with a military Black Hawk, killing all 67 on board, including members of the U.S. figure skating crew. At this time, Four Wide Media would like to take 2 minutes of their time to honor those lives lost in that Washington, D.C. plane crash. Well, technical difficulties do happen, but our thoughts and prayers are with those that lost their lives, and also in Pennsylvania as well. Kevin, you know what time it is, buddy.
It's racing time, man.
You know what time it is, buddy.
I
It's
know.
Daytona, baby.
I know. I'm
Let's.
so ready for it.
Here we go. Whoo, you gotta love that feeling, man.
Yeah,
Knowing that it's you gotta love that feeling, brother.
yeah. It gets, man. Each day it gets closer and closer and closer, and it's just the anticipation keeps ramping up.
I know, right? Sunday, 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 but it all begins with the duels, followed by the truck race, then the ARCA and Xfinity on Saturday, and then the Daytona 500 on Sunday. Who is your pick to win the Daytona 500? I've got to say this. He's been in the sport for 20 years. 20 years. Kyle Busch gets it done on Sunday.
Man, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, he's at RCR, and the last person that took it this long to win a Daytona 500 and came so close so many times was Dale Earnhardt Sr. And I think 20 years in the sport, 20 years of trying, 20 years for RCR, and Kyle Busch takes the checkered flag Sunday to win his first Daytona 500.
Man, and I'm excited, man. I've been ever since that checker flag waved in November. I'm like, damn, I need some NASCAR back again. And when oh, and for those of you who wants to watch NASCAR 24/7, check out the NASCAR channel on Tubi.
I've been watching plenty of it here lately, man, trying to tickle that itch.
And you can also go onto YouTube under NASCAR Classics and watch any race from any decade if it's available. I enjoyed that during the off season. And you can also look up for Indy cars, old IndyCar races. Just the other day, I was watching the 1975 Indianapolis 500. Now that was cool. Man, so NASCAR.com put down a list of drivers, of the best drivers to never win the Daytona 500, and the list goes on. Here's the list: Terry Labonte, 32 starts. His best finish was second, 86, 90, and 97. You got the newest Hall of Famer, Ricky Rudd, 29 Daytona 500 starts. His best finish was third in 1981. Mark Martin. I have to say, Mark Martin is the greatest driver to never win a Cup championship, never win a Daytona 500. Mark Martin is one of the greatest drivers of all time to never win a
I,
championship
I
nor the Daytona 500.
it came down the year that Earnhardt won his seventh championship. If it wouldn't have been for an inspection issue on Mark Martin's behalf and was deducted 50 points, Earnhardt wouldn't have won the seventh championship that year. Mark Martin would have had it. Earnhardt beat Mark Martin by only 26 points to win his seventh NASCAR Cup Series championship.
Yeah. You hear that? 26 points. Crazy. Then you got Bobby Labonte on the list, Rusty Wallace, Martin Truex Jr. That could come to an end on Sunday in his final Daytona 500. Kyle Busch. It could be his final. No, not his final. It's his 20th attempt. His best finish was second in 2019. I have full faith that Kyle Busch can end the losing streak and win the Daytona 500 in his 20th try.
And
You
we're
got
going
who else you got? Yeah.
to be in Cheddar's colors on Sunday too. And when the lights go down and those Cheddar's colors are on, man, that car is freaky fast. So
Oh
uh,
yeah.
hope we're going to be out front. All we got to do is take care of it. Not necessarily laps. We just got to be there at the end.
Yep, more drivers on that list. Tony Stewart, Casey Kane, who makes his return at Rockingham in April for the NASCAR Xfinity Series with RCR in the number 33. The Biff, Greg Biffle, Brad Keselowski, Carl Edwards. Speaking of cousin Carl, welcome to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And don't be surprised if you see cousin Carl in the number 5 at North Wilkesboro qualifying and practicing for Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson asked him, and he said, "Never say never."
Man, it'd be
Speaking
pretty
of
good.
Kyle Larson, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
Kyle Larson's fourth attempt at the 500. Chase Elliott, and then, of course, Ned Jarrett never won the Daytona 500. Kevin, I'm going to step away for a hot second. I'm going to check on see what our guest is doing. Go ahead and just, spit out what you need to do. I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Man, guys, leading up to this season has been completely and just utterly awesome with all the silly season news. We've got half the field in new places. We've got Ryan Preece over at RFK in the 60 car. We've got Michael McDowell over at Spire Motorsports now. We have Noah Gragson driving the number 4, iconic number 4 car, but not for Stuart Haas. He'll be driving for Front Row Motorsports. Zane Smith and Todd Gilliland over there driving for Front Row Motorsports. You have Chase Briscoe, who has now moved over to take over the 19 Bass Pro Shops Camry for Joe Gibbs Racing. Um, Riley Herbst has joined the team over at 2311 driving the 35 car. So there's so many new faces and so many new places. And I think it's really going to shake things up, especially you have the new rookies coming in. Um, Riley Herbst has got some super speedway. He's run a couple of cup races. Um, but doesn't necessarily have the experience on every track for this car. So that's going to be definitely exciting to watch Riley get behind the wheel and figure out and get his niche and get out there and race with the big boys. Um, all new, pretty much all new drivers lineup over at Front Row Motorsports. Like I said, Noah Gragson driving the iconic number 4 car. I don't know about you, whoever watched the Clash, man, but these Bass Pro Shop cars have looked so good. Um, I have to give props to Austin Dillon, that number 3 camo car, the True Timber. Um, or the Bass Pro car, that looked really good. Noah Gregson's number 4 with that orange and black and gray camo for the True Timber um, Bass Pro car. The 19 car looking wicked fast. Chase Briscoe looks like he's been there the whole time he's been in Cup. The Clash, man, where Bowman Gray, the Madhouse. I don't know about you, but this did nothing compared to the LA Coliseum. The Clash at Bowman Gray needs to stay. It produced such a good race outcome. The beating and banging in just the heat races got you fired up for the main event on Sunday night. Very long. I still think that we need to round out some cautions. I don't agree with the halfway race or the halfway stop in the middle of it. I think that needs to be fixed just a little bit. NASCAR has a little bit of work to do there, but other than that, Bowman Gray, man, hands down, 10 out of 10. The racing was really good. You had Chase Elliott start on the pole and come back to move Denny Hamlin out of the way to come back and win the Clash from the pole. And you had so many drivers that were just out there beating and banging. Bubba Wallace with a really good run at the Clash, finishing 4th with a really good car. And it was a madhouse. And I think the Clash needs to stay at Bowman Gray. And I think they can do a little tuning up for it. Maybe widen out the track just a little bit, considering the football field is no longer used as a football field. Widen out the track just a little, just a hair. But other than that, man, that it's got to go back on the schedule.
There he is.
Hey.
Hey,
Y'all hear me well?
Yes, sir. All right.
Awesome, cool.
Those are Four Wide Media. Please allow me to introduce to you our first episode, our first guest, Kyle Whisner. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Kyle, you were recently on a little show called Side Draft Media, now known as Five Lug Racing. And you also are possibly going to be driving for my friend John Vandal. How did this deal come along for a GMR, and how was they able to get you on board to a potential truck race last year?
So first off, we'll talk about Side Draft Media and the guys over there. And now I know they changed their name to Five Lug Racing, but top-notch guys. I look for people who actually try to accomplish things in life, right? Like life isn't easy. It's hard to put deals together and make things happen. And the guys over there have taken the time and the effort to be able to put everything they can into creating the best racing media outlet that they possibly can. And it's awesome because I feel like everybody starts somewhere and it's just the effort that can get you to those next levels. And soon being the little guy media turns into actually being the media as long as you continue to put the work in. And the same thing goes with racing. So what it came down to last year, we did our best to try to get a truck together and go run North Wilkesboro. But as everything was progressing, there was a lot of different people helping out and trying to make things happen. And it really was a testament to, how people help each other out in the sport. But when it came down to the last minutes of everything, weather that was coming in, and all of the things that could have made that an unsuccessful weekend, we had to decide to pull the plug last minute. So for everybody out there who watches and is paying attention to everything that's going on, the thing that I'd have to say about all of this is that you've got to at least put the effort in and try. And sometimes that doesn't work out, and so you pick yourself back up and you just keep trying and trying again. It's a full-time job just trying to get the funding to go racing, and a lot of folks out there may not understand how the business of racing works. but it's somebody has to pay for the expenses of it. And luckily, we have partners and sponsors that are able to come aboard and be able to get their brand out there. But at the lower ends of the national level, you have to be able to prove to them that you're worth your the money that's being put out there, and if you can get as much exposure as possible. So for us, I've been working the past 2 years, sitting in meetings. I mean, I've had some get this close to happening, and then they choose to switch things up and go with a more prominent driver, or a more prominent team. And you take it as a learning experience and you move on to the next one. And luckily, in my case, I have a good couple of groups of businesses and people that are wanting to see me succeed. They know my history and all the racing that I did in the past, and they want to be a part of it. And it's just it's an uphill battle, and all of us are fighting to be able to get to the peak of the mountain. And then once we get there, which is just getting a truck on the racetrack, then it's a whole other battle to another peak, to try to fine tune that and get the wins and the performance and all the things that come from it. So it's both those questions that you asked, there's a lot to it, but at the end of the day, I think I'll leave it with, it's better to try and fall down and get back up than not try at all.
Yeah, and it's like in Don, one of the co-founders of Side Draft Media, he actually started on our show, what was then known as Motor Racing Podcast, and we're beyond proud of him and of Ryan's success when it comes to Side Draft Media five lug racing. It's been a blast watching him each and every single week, And Kevin and I got this show going under a new brand because my old show was completely tarnished by a bunch of haters and stuff, things like that. I didn't want that a part of that anymore. So we started this up. And we're glad that, we were able to get our first guest on the show, get this season started. We're ready for Daytona. How about you, Kyle?
Can't wait for it. I mean, we were just out at the Clash at Bowman Gray, since I live literally 30 minutes away. Used to live in walking distance to Bowman Gray. But we were just out there experiencing that. That was a phenomenal show that everybody put on. And I'm glad that NASCAR is listening to the fans and bringing stuff back to the short tracks. I worked for a couple of years putting together a project called Historic Short Track Road Trip, which has over 1 million views for 3 videos that are out there. And that was with no advertising. It's just all of the fans just gravitated towards it because we wanted to showcase what short track racing is. It is the sport. It's not the bottom of the sport. It's what makes up everything that we see in motorsports. And it was great to see that come to fruition with the Clash being at a quarter-mile oval and guys rooting each other up out of the way, and all the best teams in the world's doing their best to try to make something happen on a short track. But Daytona, that's a whole other ball game. That's the greatest race in the United States, and I can't wait to see what everybody is going to bring to the racetrack. And I'm sure it's going to be exciting. It always is.
Oh yeah, because I started watching NASCAR when I was 5 years old in about '97. So it's been my 28th year watching it, and every year I just get more and more excited for it every single year. So I'm pumped. I'm ready. And this year I actually have a reason to be even more excited about it because I get to talk about it the following week after the 500 is over. So
awesome.
Yeah, and but yeah, that Bowman Gray Stadium, that was just phenomenal. It was beautiful. I was so happy to see, the stars aligned that night. I'm like, of course you're gonna get some people complaining, oh, this isn't NASCAR, and I'm thinking, well, what's NASCAR to you? Tell me,
Right.
what is NASCAR to you? NASCAR is just, they're saying, oh, NASCAR can't sell out events, but yet there was 75% of the races was sold out last year, and it's just like, you don't talk. If you don't talk about it, it's not going to get noticed. Now, I noticed that you was recently at the NASCAR Hall of Fame induction ceremony. What are your thoughts on Carl Edwards getting inducted into the Hall of Fame in such a short career that he had?
I mean, you can label it as a short career. Most people will never get to experience anything that that man was able to accomplish. I believe it's rightfully earned. He's a staple of motorsports, and he deserves every right to be awarded a Hall of Famer position. I mean, if we start to look back at the quintessential players in motorsports and what they bring to the storyline of motorsports as a whole, if we were to mention to any race fan about the backflip off of the door after winning a race, they would know it's Carl Edwards. That says, I think, everything that needs to be said about this. The fact that he is a household name to anybody who knows anything about motorsports. So I'm stoked to see him as an inductee, and that's what the Hall of Fame is all about. It's about remembering every person who's left their mark on this sport, and it's not just the top guys. It's we could talk about guys that are running modifieds that are in the Hall of Fame, and these are to people who don't quite understand motorsports, or maybe just a fan from the outside of it would say, oh, well, that person never made it to the top levels of the sport. Why do they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Well, because they dedicated their entire life to motorsports and to racing. And, just to take what you were talking about before too, you've mentioned it a couple of times about the haters in the sport. And the fans that are more interested in dragging people down or saying why things are wrong than the people who are celebrating all the things that are right. Now, all sports have this. Any type of spectator situation where people are watching something, you're going to get a majority of people who, for the lack of a better word, just want to pour toxicity into whatever they're seeing because they're not accomplishing much in their lives, and they're angry about that. So they want to be able to make everybody else feel that way. You experience that, I guess, with your podcast, as you were saying. We all do. Every person who tries to accomplish something in life is going to be met with the adversity of somebody telling them that it can't be done, they're not fit to do it, or whatever the situation may be. So I think at the end of the day, you kind of have to let that noise be that noise. Some people would say any publicity is good publicity. But at the end of the day, you just got to sit down and look at it and say, okay, well, for all of those people, those keyboard warriors who are spewing out, hate and toxicity while being anonymous, that they, what are they doing with their lives? That at the end of the day. So, don't worry about that. Just keep doing what you're doing and make your content and enjoy life with it. And full circle back around. What do I think about Carl Edwards being in this? If there's anybody out there who says he doesn't deserve to do this, then show me what they're doing.
Exactly. And it's like when you talk about the keyboard warriors, I remember I think it was in 2023 or 2024 when Mike Joy made a comment in regards to those keyboard warriors. I forgot what he said, but fans were not happy about it. And I'm thinking, well, he was making a point. Like people is going to be hating on things for like literally no reason because they don't like how things are. And it's like if you don't like it, then simply don't watch.
The famous words of Kyle Busch: if you don't like that kind of racing, don't even watch.
Exactly, Kevin.
Well, I would say it like this too. Like if you don't like what you're seeing, then change it. And you're not going to change it by sitting there and talking, putting stuff on the internet about it. Like get up and go to your racetrack, your local racetrack. Be a part of what's happening in motorsports. Get a job in racing. Find a way to change it in the best way you possibly can, because it doesn't help anybody to just sit there on the internet and talk about why everything is wrong.
Correct. Kevin, what do you got?
Man, so I was talking about Bowman Gray while we were waiting on Kyle to come on the show. And speaking of, I only live probably about 2 hours from Bowman Gray. I live right here in East Tennessee. And I've always wanted to go, but we had to hiatus with our last show last year because I had a bunch of health problems, went downhill, had to focus on that. I do have to give a shout out to Don and Ryan. I got to agree with you, Jordan. Super proud of those guys for setting out to do what they wanted to do and start to have that success inside the media. I follow Don. I got to meet him up with him when he was up here at Bristol for the night race. That side draft media and 5 lug racing, it's going great. The fact that NASCAR changed it up. I mean, we went from the Clash at Daytona where it's just been super speedway racing, and then you have NASCAR that says, okay, well, the fans aren't happy, they're turning off the TV. We had it at the Daytona road course. That really didn't help much. And they've
No,
been
it really didn't.
they've been trying to pretty much come up with a happy medium to make both the bandwagon type fans happy and the true motorsports fans happy. And I think what they did at Bowman Gray this year, I think NASCAR did everything right. We went back to our roots. They're always talking about grassroots racing. Everybody wants to go short track racing, and then you have all those people. Well, this is not what we're talking about. This is not. Well, where's Bowman Gray? Bowman Gray is, I think, the root of grassroots racing. And
Yeah, without a doubt. It's so, and there's racetracks like Bowman Gray all over the country. I cut my teeth at a place called Orange Show Speedway. It's a quarter-mile oval, looks just like Bowman Gray. The stands even are the similar concrete construction with it. The difference is that Bowman Gray has packed that place out every Saturday night for years, and that's a testament to the fans, right? And the show that they put on there, the promoters that they had over the years to be able to make it an exciting show, and the racers and how they conduct themselves there. It makes it exciting. But the actual racetrack itself, the style of racing that happens there is exciting on its own. It's the most, it's a taxing and challenging style racetrack. You have to drive that race car. And there's racetracks that are quarter mile, half mile, and anywhere in between that, local short tracks all over the country that delivers this level of excitement in racing. And it's a challenge because it's so hard to do. If you've got, in this case, 20 cars too wide going around this racetrack, it's almost impossible to make 2 laps or 3 laps without getting into anybody, right? So you have the best teams in the world and the best drivers in the world even trying to make something like that happen. Whereas what they've been doing all of these years with the big super speedways and all of this stuff, guys, teams have got that dialed in and they understand how to do it. And of course, you're facing the big wreck and all of the things that happen with that. And it's a different type of challenge. But that short track racing, it really shows the difference on whether someone can drive or not. Or a team can set up a car to get around a track like that because it is so hard to do.
With Bowman Gray, with short tracks like that, to me, especially with this new car that we've brought, this new next gen car, what all the drivers are calling the Walmart car, you're putting the steering wheel and the handling back in the hands of the drivers. Rather than setting up a car, you're being able to tell the drivers from the children necessarily.
Well, I would say that car, though, fabrication is down as far as how it's put together and where you're getting your parts from, and how you assemble it is a different thing. But it is closer in times, more of, I want to call it a spec style racing than years past, where you can build the sweetest piece that you possibly could to try to outrun everybody. And put as much money into it as you possibly could to gain speed, because of course money is speed. But I wouldn't take away the fact that it is extremely hard to get one of those cars set up perfectly, and there's people who can do it and there's people who can't do it. And it's really showing the difference between the teams as well. Though it's closed up that gap quite a bit, it still shows a difference with the professional aspect of motorsports, because when I was sitting there listening to the radio of all of these teams running at Bowman Gray, you can hear the difference in procedure that these teams were were doing that was making sure that they weren't making mistakes, because that's the key to that type of racing is mitigate the mistakes, right? So I would, to your point, I would say the car still, the way the sport is laid out, you can't just have an amazing driver without an amazing team to be able to get that thing set up to get around a racetrack, and they have to work together. Or, you know, the difference between the guys that are running through the field and the guys that are in the back of the field getting lapped, you can definitely see the difference between that.
And I mean, you said money is speed, but does when it comes to setting up a car as spec as this car is, does money buy crew chiefs, engineers, things of that nature? Can you tell that difference between team to team from those guys who are running up front and those guys that are getting lapped in the back?
Without a doubt, I would say people are the major difference now, right? Because you're before it was if you hired the right fabricators and the folks that could build the car in a way that can make it faster. But now you're talking about organizations, you know, folks, you're able to take that money and give salaries to folks that have that knowledge and have been able to take notes for the past couple of years to be able to put together the right package. If you don't have the funding to be able to bring those people to your team, keep in mind, just like the rest of us, we all have to make a living and make a decent living. If you wanted a salary that was $50,000 a year, 60,000, 70, 80, 120, 150, whatever that may be, of the cost of the knowledge that you've gained over the years at what you do, it's the same thing in motorsports. So I would say folks with limited funds and sponsorship have smaller amount of people. I've seen it myself. I've been on a team where it was me as the full-time employee and had part-time employees coming in trying to make things happen. That's a major difference between the teams who have 350 people that are working at the shop day in and day out to be able to get these cars set up and to the racetrack. So yes, to your question, it definitely makes a huge difference.
And going back to Bowman Gray, I mean, I know we're talking about Daytona and the trucks and Xfinity, and we're gonna see these guys battling out 3 wide, 4 wide. But coming back to the technical tracks that NASCAR's adding, like Bowman Gray, we saw the clash. I mean, what a race! Even if you weren't there in person, you could definitely feel the excitement and everything that was just coming through the TV screen. Whether it was listening, I've got the NASCAR app, listening to radios between drivers, and just the crowd getting fired up and pumped up. How would you feel? I know we're bringing back the Xfinity and the Truck Series Challenge this year. As successful as the Clash was for the Cup, how do we feel about maybe bringing Xfinity and Truck Challenge to Bowman Gray or a particular track as Bowman Gray?
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm up for anything that brings me into a vehicle on what I know how to do best. So if I could work out a deal to where I was running a truck at Bowman Gray, I know I'd at least on my skill and ability have a shot, you know? So I love that idea. I think, you know, short tracks and even road course racing, you know, the specific skill that it takes to do that, it's a great way to weed out certain style of drivers as they work their way through the ranks. And so that's why I think NASCAR has everything set up so that you have to work through and prove yourself, as far as you're not just going to go out there and wreck the entire field as you work your way through. And so like with the trucks or even ARCA, you come into it saying that you're qualified based off of your prior experience for certain track sizes and under. And so what they did is they've had the short tracks and the road courses as a way for drivers to cut their teeth and be able to try to qualify into these races. And that's a hard part about not being a full-time team, is you don't have the points. So you have to qualify in on speed on these tracks, and they're technical tracks. You have to actually drive. It's not just about how trimmed out that car is and how it cuts through the air. And because on qualifying at Daytona, it's just one car out there running on the bottom, and it's all about the car and holding a pretty wheel. But utilizing the short tracks and road courses to show people's ability is like when we ran the Chicago street race, and our new driver who had never run Xfinity before had an extreme amount of talent. I mean, the kid was super fast, Andre. And Andre was able to drive that car and qualify into the race without any points. And it just showed exactly what his skill level was on driving at speed on a road course like that. So I say, focus on the short tracks, the road courses. As far as the fan side of things, they're not piled all on top of each other, so that energy still isn't the same, because you've got a group of fans in one corner and another group of fans all the way on the other side of the racetrack on another corner. But when we're talking entertainment side of things, nothing beats the short tracks. That's what Bowman Gray has had all of these years, is that excitement that you were talking about, and all of the fans cheering and booing when something goes wrong. It's a show. That's what a lot of racetracks have lost over the years. And then when we go to the televised side of things, that show is just to everybody broadcast in their houses, to while they're sitting on their couches, so they don't have people sitting next to them to feel that energy and that vibe. But I'm glad to hear from you that what we were experiencing in the stands, which we can experience every Saturday night at Bowman Gray, that wasn't so much the big show coming there that created that. That was just Bowman Gray in general, that creates that energy. But I'm glad you all could feel it at home, and that's what the short tracks bring to the schedule. So to your question, hey, I'm all for jumping into a truck or an ARCA car at any short track that's out there, especially something like Bowman Gray, because I know I'd actually have a shot at doing something. Even on the side when it comes to setting it up and everything else, I just know that far better than the 1.5 miles in the super speedway.
Now, as far as deals go, do you have any racing deals set up, whether it be ARCA or truck or anything this year, or is there anything coming close to being set up for this season?
Well, there is a lot of stuff in the works, and I feel like every time I come on a podcast, I have to say there's a lot of stuff's in the works, but I can't really say anything. And the reason why is because I've learned in this sport, and I think just in life in general, that if you let too much information out too quickly, then people who don't want to see you win will do whatever they can to make sure that that doesn't happen. But with that said, there's so many cool things that are happening right now when it comes to the ARCA and truck side of things. And at the very least, I can say I want to thank every one of the people that are out there who have supported and wanted to see me succeed, and are taking the time and energy to sit in boardroom meetings and talk about brand exposure and all of the stuff that comes with that side of the territory of the business, because it's a full-time job. I work currently, just all transparency, I currently work 2 jobs right now, and just to make all this stuff happen. And that doesn't include all the small side things that I do. And while I'm doing all of that, I'm scheduling time to do these podcasts or to sit down in a boardroom with potential sponsors. And it's a lot. It's a lot of work just to get to the racetrack, just to set up the deal. But as far as everything goes right now, we have potential sponsors. We have potential teams that we're talking to. We have a lot of great things in the work to see us get on track and be able to do this the right way. So I'm stoked at what the year has to offer. I mean, heck, right before I got on this podcast, I was getting phone calls and texts for people wanting me to go on the car chief, crew chief side of things, and get the cars ready and get them all set up. And these are all just decisions that I have to sit down and say, what is the end goal? What do I want to accomplish with my racing career as a quote journeyman race car driver? Meaning I'm not just fully funded and able to run every single race possible, but just one-off races as much as I can until we can get things cemented. And whether that be working on building the cars, setting up the cars, getting them to the racetrack, or spending my time outside of motorsports, working on television and film, or it being just, fully getting everybody on board to be able to just solely be a driver. But with that said, I'll never be the guy who just shows up with a helmet in my hand, because I'm not that type of person. I'm involved in all the aspects of motorsports. So, but yeah, to answer your question, there is a lot of really cool stuff going on. Stay tuned. I hope to be able to reveal it shortly. And when we do have that information, I'll come right back on the show and I'll let you know exactly who I'm running for and who the sponsor is and all the fun stuff about it. Heck, I'll even come on the show after we finish up the race or during the race, during practice or whatever, and we can have a little show there too.
Sorry about that. What did I had my wife called. I was trying to figure out what was going on. What did I miss? I apologize.
Well, we just got down to the nitty gritty about maybe some deals that were in the works possibly for this year, and getting down to the nitty gritty about the changes that NASCAR's making, and good changes that we're seeing from NASCAR to be able to make sure that the shows that we're seeing are satisfying the fans.
Okay,
Yeah. And with that said, I just want to say this too: family first. If your wife called, you got to take that call. That's
yes.
important. So, no
Yeah.
worries about that. But
Hold
yeah,
on
we
the
just
couch.
talk about racing.
Okay. Yep. I'll Kevin. But of course, I'm gonna go back and listen to it later because I got to get it ready to be uploaded to to where it's gonna be streamed at, so it can be posted at 3 o'clock on Wednesday.
All right. Um,
Yeah. So
and then Kyle, what do you think about The Rock coming back? I mean, I know we're not going to see Cup there just yet. And I say just yet, but I think them bringing North Wilkesboro back, running Cup
start.
there, it's really cool. As a fan that didn't get into the sport until 2016, to go back and watch those old races with my dad and go, wow, the racing there was really, I really wish that I could have been there. And now we get to see that racing back at North Wilkesboro and now Rockingham.
Yeah. That test that they did there, those cars were hauling the mail, man. They were wicked fast around that racetrack. So I would say that a lot of these retro racetracks or tracks that were very popular in the 70s and 80s and even 90s, they, because of business, like say, for example, Bruton
Mhm.
Smith. Bruton Smith wanted to move everything over to Charlotte Motor Speedway when they built it. And so North Wilkesboro was so close and nearby that because Charlotte got the date, North Wilkesboro wasn't able to continue going on. But it definitely shows like the transition of and the building of the sport, right? Because it went from short tracks to building into mile and a half and super speedways and in these, but then you always had like the Bristols that were always tried and true, and because everybody loves the excitement that was built there.
Mhm.
But it also, there's something about the package that they bring to it, what car they're running. Because when we look at the Bristol of old and we see, the bias ply tire and the radials and comparison, the type of racing that you see, you're going to get a different outcome with it. So when we talk about going back to Rockingham, you've got to figure out what package you're bringing to it, what tire, what the type of car, and all the things with it, because it's going to change how the racing was. You're never going to get the exact same thing that you saw back then, because it's a completely different car and different drivers and different crews. It's just a different
Mhm.
time. But what I saw is on those tests, holy moly, they were hauling the mail. That is one fast racetrack with the package that they have on it, and it's gonna be guys right on the edge the entire time, unless they switch some things up, and then you might have 2-3 wide racing and things like that. But the way that we saw what they were running, it would look like mock qualifying runs nonstop, and that's pretty exciting as a driver, because one small mistake and you just junked a car. So it's going to be cool to watch. I'm excited to see it with the trucks and the Xfinity, and if guaranteed the way that these things work, if that keeps going in the direction it's going, you're going to see a cup date there, and all the people in North Carolina and the surrounding states that travel there to watch that show, it's definitely going to help the economy out here. So that's going to be cool.
Yep, and with the 10 minutes that we have left in the show, let's do weekend predictions. Who do we have winning the Truck Xfinity and Cup?
Wow. That's so hard when it comes to Daytona. I mean, how do you pick that? The odds, the guy from the very back can work his way up and do it. I have no idea. What's your guys' picks? And I'll run from there.
I'm gonna say for the Truck Series, because I know how these trucks are. Anybody can crash out within 100 laps. I'm gonna have to say Corey Heim takes the victory at Daytona on Friday night.
Man, you
Awesome.
can't ever rule out that kid. The way that kid drives that truck is insane at his age. He races like he's 20 years behind the wheel. And it's insane to watch him race because it looks like you have a veteran out there like Chase Elliott or Kyle Busch or
Mm-hmm.
out there in the truck. Just the discipline he has behind the wheel is absolutely insane. And any racetrack we go to, whether it's Bristol, whether it's Daytona, whether it's Watkins Glen, that kid has got that truck dialed in. And every week they are talking about Corey Heim.
Yep.
Every
And you also don't forget you also got Frankie Muniz in there now running for Rookie of the Year this year too. So anybody
we'll
could
see
win
how
Daytona, but I'm definitely thinking Corey Heim is going to win the truck race on Friday. Justin Allgaier will win Daytona on Saturday and Sunday. Even though I'm an Austin Cindric fan, I got to go for Kyle Busch winning it. 20 years of trying.
Oh, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
I mean,
I
I've
I
been
would.
in the sport since 2016, and it was one of those things that my dad got me into. And I told him in 2016, the very first race that I actually sat down and watched was the Daytona 4th of July race. And Brad Keselowski ended up winning that race. I was almost a Keselowski fan, almost. But my sister kept pushing Kyle Busch, Kyle Busch, Kyle Busch. And I'm like, my sister doesn't root for losers. So, and she kept pushing. So I kept watching Kyle. And I'm like, I don't know. He kept growing on me. So I've been a Kyle Busch fan since I've been in the sport. And every year, man, especially 2 years ago when we were 100 feet from taking the white flag and they threw the caution. I thought that was going to be our year, first year at Richard Childress, and we were going to win the Daytona 500. So we've been so close so many times, but I feel like it's going to be this Sunday. It's going to be Kyle. I mean,
Wow.
20 years of trying, and the last person to do that was Earnhardt. 20 years of trying.
Wow. Well, I would say you brought up a good name there towards the end when it came to the Cup, and thinking about how well RFK is doing, Rich. What is it? What's it? My brain just completely froze me. It's RFK, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They, when you look at the performance that they are bringing out of those teams, and I really think it has a lot to do with their additive manufacturing stuff that they're doing, the 3D printing style things. They're finding speed out of these cars, and it's amazing to watch. So I'm gonna say Keselowski, and it mainly just because I've seen is, if memory serves me correctly, throughout the years he's always had those moments, and then right at the last minute something goes wrong. So I'm gonna say Keselowski. I'll say Allgaier for Xfinity
Ooh.
and Raja Caruth for the trucks. And I say that because last year at Daytona, watching him run, he was making veteran moves. And there was just, a crazy amount of wrecks. But again, that's the odds of running Daytona, is the fact that you can have the best truck out there and still not win the thing because you get caught up in the big one. So those are my 3 picks.
As far as that, Ben Rhodes, I'm going to have to go with the 99 of Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes is always one of those guys that everybody doesn't think about until right there at the end. And then where did that kid come from?
Mm-hmm.
So if he's not dominating, he's always one of those sleeper guys. It's like, hey, I'm back here, make a mistake, and I'm going to be there to pounce on that mistake. I feel like Ben Rhodes is one of those guys that you don't ever count out, and how people do, I will never know. And driving the 88 for Junior Motorsports, I'm gonna have to go with that kid Connor Zillich. Um,
Honor, yeah.
he's the couple races that he got to race last year. He came out there and ran the nuts off that car. I mean, he run the nuts off that car, and the fact that Dale Jr. finally gave him a ride, he won his first Xfinity race down there at Watkins Glen, and the kid can drive. I mean,
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's my
I
driver
think
for this year.
he's got all the talent in the world, and he can wheel any race car that you put him in. I think time will show the difference on whether or not he can know when to go and know not when to go, because you can drive the wheels off a race car. You do that every lap, and the thing either you get into accidents or something breaks. So the fact that that he has the ability to run it at let's say turn the knob up to 12. I think if he was able to dial it back just a little bit and turn that knob to 12 every time, like when it's important, when he has to do it, that's when you're going to see a championship driver out of him.
Oh yeah,
and he's got
and
Peck behind him. He's got Dale Earnhardt Jr. behind him as a team, and we know that that Dale Earnhardt, that Junior Motorsports down there is one of the most competitive teams in Xfinity. So
without a doubt.
I definitely feel like it's going to be a Chevy type weekend minus trucks, and I feel like that Ben Rhodes is going to get it done.
Awesome.
well, Kyle, you've been a joy to have on our show. You're welcome to come back anytime, buddy.
Happy to be here. I appreciate it. Like I said before, we all, we put the effort out and try to make it happen. And this is your first show, and I'm honored to be on your first show. And I'm looking forward to all the other guests that come aboard and are part of your conversations and everything that you bring to the sport. So just, keep digging, and I'll be back whenever you would like to have me.
Yeah, and with that being said, I'd like to shout out to a few people. I want to shout out to Brianna Daniels for this awesome Bree hat that I got from her a few years ago. She's out there doing her thing as the first African American pit crew member. Follow us. I want people to follow us on Instagram at 4wide.media, on Twitter at 4wide media, and of course like us on Facebook at 4wide media. Also today I made the call to HMD Motorsports in regards to Haley Deegan. I did receive her PR information. I did send out a request for Haley Deegan's interview, and I was also told by HDM Motorsports that I have the right to interview her in person at Mid Ohio if I attend with Four Wide Media. So that is the plan. Kevin, I'm going to put you on that credentials list. I also got credentials sent out for Rockingham. Let's make this happen, Kevin. Let's make this happen in 2025.
And we're going to get it. We're going to be successful. And that's hopefully later this season, we'll be talking to Kyle with a ride and rooting him on for the weekend wherever he's racing. So the next time
Absolutely.
maybe he'll be in victory lane in one of them trucks.
Hey man, it's a victory just strapping into one and getting to the racetrack. But I guarantee you, with all the things that are happening right now, it's going to be a lot sooner than later. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the support, and whatever I can do to help y'all.
Yep. And until then, enjoy the races this weekend. It is the 2025 racing season. Let's go racing, boys and girls. We'll see y'all next week. Good night, everybody.